Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Ankush from Alif Consulting. Welcome in our Azure Migrate video. In this video, we will be going to learn how we can perform a full migration of a AWS instance to the Azure, right? In our previous videos, what we learned how to discover a AWS instance, how to deploy the discovery appliance and then connect the VM to do the discovery, how we can perform the assessment of discovered VM. And in our specifically last video, what we learned, how we can install the migration appliance, how we can prepare the instances, and then how we can start the replication of the VM to the Azure Recovery Vault or the Azure Migration Project using the migration appliance, right? So these are the steps which we have performed in our last video where we learned like we verified the migration prerequisite. We set up the we prepare the EC2 instances. We set up the migration appliance. We set up the replication appliances. We install the mobility agent. We enable the VM replications, right? So these kind of things we done in our last video. However, there was a one issue where we are not successfully able to protect our VM for the replications. That's something I had done it after the video. So what was the issue is there is like we are not able to install the mobility agent. So what I did manually installation of the mobility agent and then enable the replications, right? So that's something I'll going to show you in this video. What are the steps is there which you can uh, use to basically uh, to install the mobility agent manually on the VM, right? So in this video what we are going to run, also we are going to run or understand what is the test migration, how we can use the test migration, right? And the third thing is how we can done the full migration of the AWS instance to the Azure, right? So these are the three things we are going to do in this video. All right, then let's quickly jump into the demo and go to the Azure portal. So yeah, I am already logged in the Azure portal, and if you go into the overview of the migration tool, you would see I have a already have the replicated VM, right? So this is in a healthy state and this is protected and fully replicated. If you go into this VM, you would be able to see all the informations about this VM. What are the health status? What are the configuration? What are the targets location, network subscriptions, configurations, right? What are the appliance through which it's getting replicated? What are the VM ID? What are the operating system, right? And then if you go into the computer network, you can further do the rest of the configurations, right, into this replicated VM, like the network scope, the size, the availability, the virtual network kind of things you can do. This is configuration you can do, or you can change the existing configuration as well. At the same time, you can see what are the disk has been protected or which are not in protection, right? So if there is a no disk which is in a protection and you want to enable the protection, you can directly come in this configuration and you can do that also. So this is how the replication happened when the VM is protected and have the mobility agent installed, right? So let me walk you through with the process how the mobility agent can be installed. So to install the mobility agent manually, what you need to do, you need to go on the appliance and you need to search for the repository under this program data slash ASR slash home slash SVS system slash publish installer SVC slash repository, where you will be going to find a ASR file or a Microsoft ASR appliance Windows release .exe file, and then once that has been there, what you can do, you can copy that uh, setup into the VM from where you need to on VM, which you need to protect the VM or you need to replicate to the Azure, and then you need to extract that by using this command. The first command in this case, what is going to be happen, it's going to extract the unified setup.exe file, and it's going to extract this whole exe file, right? And then what happened once this is got extracted, you need to run this command unified agent.exe setup to install the mobility agent. Once that mobility agent is installed, then you need to run this command to register uh, the 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 VM using the configuration server. Now you might be thinking about the CS endpoint and what are the the paste files path you can get. So the pass phase file path or fast file file you can create it on by generating the pass phase. That's something you can also get when your installation is completed on the appliance. So you can run this command which is here, and you can run this command and you can get the pass phase, and then you can put that in the file and you can uh, set up, or you can set the path of the file where the pass phase is stored. As soon as you run uh, this command to register the agent with the replication appliance, right? What you need to do, you need to come back on the Azure Migrate project, right? And from here you need to set up the replication, right? So coming to the into the migration tool, click on replication, right? Select the source and destination, click on continuous, select the virtualization type. In our case it's going to be physical. Select the appliance, select the credentials, click on next, select the VM, which VM you want to protect. In my case I only have one VM which I protected. You just need to select that, and then you need to set up the target like the resource group, network, subnet, size, and then you need to define the compute sizing configuration. You need to specify the disk, how many disks you want to replicate, right? So let's take an example. You have a 10 disk but you only want to replicate 2 or 3 disks. You can select the disk on that specific fifth step, and then you can specify the tag, and then you can start the replication of the VM, right? So as soon as the replication is enabled, you can come back to the migration tool. You can click on overview and you can click on replicating VM, and here you can see the status of the replication, right? So as of now this is fully protected, but in case of if the replication is started, it will be going to show you how much the replication is completed, right? So from here you can monitor the status, right? So that's how you can install the mobility agent, right? Now the next thing is test migration, right? So test migration is the one of the step which you can run on your replicated VM to just validate if your VM is successfully replicated or your VM is correctly replicated, right? To run the test migration, what you need to do, you need to come back, you need to click on server, database and web app under the Azure Migrate. You need to go to the migration tool, you need to click on overview, and then you need to click on the replicating machines, right? You need to select the machine on which you want to perform the test migration. So in my case I want to perform the test migration on this VM, so let's click on it and then click on test migration, right? So in this test migration you need to select the virtual network where the test migration is need to be performed, and click on test migration. As soon as you clicked on test migration, it's going to validate uh, the 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 VM which is protected, and then it's going to start the test migration of the VM, right? So how you can monitor that, like you can click on this notification and here you can see what is happening, right? So these are the four step where it's going to be happen. It's going to perform the prerequisite checks for the test failover, and then it's going to start the test failovers, and then it's going to create the virtual machine, and then it's going to start the machine uh, for this test failover which we have started, right? So if we open a duplicate tab into this browser, so let's go ahead and check what actually we can see in the portal. Let's see if we can see any of the resources or anything has been uh, created by this test failover process. So if you click on all resources, you would be able to see whatever the resources has been there, right? So let me switch the subscription and apply. So these are the resources. So you can see this VM has been already created. You can see this has been created slash with the name slash test. So whenever you are running a test failover, you will always going to get a test at last of the resource name or any other resources which is attached to the virtual machine, right? So as of now this is still in the creating process. However, if you go into the VM, you would see this VM is in currently running state, and we can directly connect this VM from here, right? As of now, the agent is not ready. Some of the issues which are something can be fixed post migration of the VM also, right? And once this test migration is successfully, or the test failover is successfully completed, we can use RDP to connect with this VM, right? So it's checking the network connectivity, it's checking the IP requests, it's checking the VM is running. So in our case, this VM does not have any public IP, and at the network level, uh, the NSG, okay, so the network interface does not contain an NSG, so we are okay with that. And then from here, what we can do, as of now, this VM does not have any public IP, right? However, we can assign the public IP on this VM, and then we can use the same way RDP file to connect this VM. Now, you might be thinking about what are the credentials I need to use. So there is a two way. Either you can use your existing credentials of your AWS, which has been created by AWS uh, deployment, or else what you can do, in your real world when you're doing in a production, most probably you might be having predefined credentials created on this VM, right? So when you click on the RDP file will get downloaded, and then from there you can use your predefined credentials or your domain accounts to get connect with this VM, right? So once your test failover is completed or you validated your VM, what you need to do, you need to do the cleanup of your test failover, right? So how you can do that? For that, you need to come on the Azure Migrate project. You need to click on server, database, and web app, and then you need to click on overview. You need to click on replicating VM. You need to select the VM on which you performed uh, the the test failover, and then here is the option cleanup test migration, right? So as soon as you click on cleanup test migration, you can specify any nodes you want to do, and then you can click on testing is completed, right? So as soon as you done the cleanup, right, so what is going to be happen, it's going to delete all the resources which has been created by this test migration, right? And then if you want to monitor the status of this job, you can simply come on this one and you can see what is happening, right? So once you click on the notification of this cleanup, you would be see what exactly is happening, right? So it's ending the test failover, and it's cleaning up the test VMs which has been created by the test failover. Now if you come on the portal and if you go into all resources and you do the refresh, you would be going to see these two things, sorry, these three things like a VM, disk, and the interface will be automatically removed from the portal, right? So you need to give it a some time, and as soon as this is completed, here the cleanup is completed, you will see all of these three resources is no longer available on the Azure portal, right? So let's this cleanup to be get completed, and then we're going to do the actual failover or the actual migration of the VM from AWS to Azure, right? So you might be getting confused like why I'm saying the failover also, because this is the way where you can use the ASR also to do the failover from one cloud to the another cloud for the migration, right? So it's going to take a little time. I think it's already have took a little bit more time. So yeah, let's go back to the portal and refresh and see if the resources has been deleted. So as of now, you can see the VM is deleted. However, disk and in network interface are still there. So yeah, just give it some more time, and as soon as that's done, so now the resources will be get deleted. So now the disk is also deleted. The only thing which is left here is the NIC, right? So yeah, just give it a few seconds, and sorry. So yeah, the text. So finally, this cleanup is completed. Test cleanup is completed, right? So as soon as your test cleanup is completed, all the resources which has been created by the test failover will be get removed from the Azure portal, right? That's how you can done the test failover or test migration. Now let's see how you can do the actual actual migration into the real world, right? So for that, what you need to do, you need to go into your migration project, you need to go on the migration tool. In server databases in the web app option, you need to click on overview, you need to click on replicating machines, you need to click on the machines or the VM which you want to migrate, right? And then you need to click on the migrate. As soon as you click on the migrate, it's going to ask you, do you want to shut down the VM or you don't want to shut down the VM, right? In my case, I'm just saying I don't want to shut down the VM, but in your cases, you might need to be shut down the VM to prevent the data loss, right? And then click on migrate, right? So this is the actual migration which is happening. Now what Azure is going to do, or Azure migrate project is going to do, it's going to base on the last image or last application which is available into the Azure migrate project or into the Azure recovery vault. It's going to use that project to create the VM and do the migration, right? So if you go to this task, you would be going to see it's performing the migration, and there is plenty of the task which need to be performed while the migration is completed. So now the prerequisites has been completed, the latest changes has been skipped. Now it started the failover and the or is the migration, right? Now if you come back to the portal or if you refresh, as of now you are not seeing any of the resources because the migration or the failover is just started. So you need to give it a couple of minutes to get this failover or the migration to get completed, right? So yeah, we still don't have any of the resources has been created by the fail this migration, which the full migration or the actual migration which we have started. However, when you come back on a portal or you do the refresh, you would see the disk has been successfully created, which means the migration has been started now, right? So you need to come back. If you refresh one more time, you would see virtual machines and NICs are finally available on the Azure portal, right? So let's wait for a few more seconds and get the migration or failover completed, right? So now you can see this failover and the migration is successfully completed, right? Now this is the VM which is currently in the running state and successfully migrated, right? Since this VM is not having a public IP, hence I was not able to connect this VM. So let's go ahead and assign the public IP on this VM or this VM NIC. Let's go on the IP configuration. Here associate. I don't have any pip, so let's go ahead and create the pip. Click on save. Right, come back and come on the VM and wait for the configurations to get completed. As soon as this configurations is or this deployment is completed, we'll see the new public IP which has been associated to the VM. Now we can click on RDP and we can download the RDP file, right? And then we can use this RDP file to connect with this VM. Now you might be thinking about from where I can get the credentials of this VM, right? So as I told you, either you need to create the predefined credentials, right, to the VM to connect it, right? So in my case, this VM is already created on the AWS. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the AWS credentials to connect with this VM, right? So that's something I can get from here. So this is the username and password of the VM which I have migrated, right? So let me copy the password, go to the RDP, put the username and put the password and click on connect, right? So as soon as you click on connect, you would be able to log in into the VM and you would be able to see it, right? Somehow it's not taking the password. Let me go ahead and try it in another way of logging into the VM. Okay, it's still not taking the username and the password. So yeah, there is a one more way to connect it. So what I need to do, I need to copy this host name of the VM. Let's put this host name here. Sorry, copy the credentials from here and click on paste. Okay, it's still not picking up the credentials. Okay, so it's not picking up the credential. So let's go ahead and create the credentials directly from the Azure portal. So we do have an option to create the credential, but before that we need to see if we have the extension installed. So we don't have any extension installed. So yeah, let's go ahead and reset the password. This one is automatically going to the install the extension which is required and will create the user and the reset of the password of that user, right? So this is one of the option which you can use to change the password of the VM directly from the portal. Now why we are doing this? Because our AWS credentials which we are using is not working to connect with this VM, right? So yeah, let's get this username and the pass get this user created into the VM, and then we will use this user to get connected with the virtual machine. So yeah, it's going to install the VM access. So it's currently in the into the transiting state. So once this is get installed, the user and the credentials which we have set up or created will be get created. So we need to give it a couple of minutes to get this reset password activity to get completed. So you can see the VM enable VM access, which is the one of the extension which you use to reset the password or set up the user into the user account has been done, and also the reset password or the user creation process has been completed. Now let's go back into the RDP. Uh, Sorry, let me go ahead and download the RDP file again, right? And this is the username, this is the password which I have set up. And finally, we are able to log into the VM which we have migrated from the AWS. Now, how you can validate or how I can show you like this is the AWS instance. That's something you would be only that's something you can see by checking the few things. First of all, on the desktop, you will see there is the few EC2 configuration or EC2 shortcut would be there, which identified that this VM is coming from the AWS, right? So yeah, let's give it a few seconds to come up and show the desktop, and on the desktop we would be going to see two shortcut which is coming from the AWS. Now you see the EC2 Microsoft Windows Guide or EC2 feedback, both of these things are basically related to the EC2 instances, which means this VM is directly coming from the AWS and successfully migrated on the Azure, right? Apart of that, some of the things you can see into the control panel also. So if you go into the control panel, and if you go into the application or program and feature, you would see there is the SSM agent, AWS CNF bootstrap, other PV driver, EC2 launch. All of these applications or the extensions are installed on this VM, which means or which identify this machine is directly coming from AWS to Azure, right? And Once you come in here, once your failover is completed, you will see if you go to the Azure Migrate project, if you go into the server database and the web app option, if you click on overview and if you click on replicated VM, you will see the failover is successfully completed, which means now we don't have any options to test migration, cleanup, migrate, and the other of any other information, right? So this failover has been successfully done, or the migration of the VM is successfully completed. Well, that's it in this demo. I hope you like this video and you like this VM migration series from AWS to Azure, right? If you have any question, please feel free to reach us. All right. And thanks for giving your time. Thank you.